Major Spoilers podcast covers news, reviews, and of course, spoilers, and goes into details about the topics discussed. So if you haven't read, listened, or watched the items we talk about, you might want to come back later.
Welcome, everyone. This week is a general topic show. Thank you for checking us out and joining us. And so many people like the new music that we have at the beginning, really like how that flows in. Thank you so much for the feedback on that. If you missed the pre-show, well, we talked about calling 911 and people that are trespassing or not trespassing. Of course, we always are slamming capitalism and Wizards of the Coast. So if you want to hear that, you need to become a patron today over at patreon.com/major spoilers. Talk about capitalism. It's not really, it is capitalistic when we ask you for money, but realize that we are not trying to satisfy investors. We don't have investors. We are not trying to always increase returns. We're trying to pay for our costs and put a little pocket change in our wallets so that we can have a hamburger maybe at the McDonald's. Apparently prices are coming down because they realize that no one wants to pay $15 for a Subway. And Subway's like, well, no, why are we going out of business? Why are we losing money? Well, you're charging $15 for a $4 Subway. So there you go. So you can prevent that from happening here by going over to patreon.com/major spoilers and listening to our pre-show this week. Got a comment. I posted this over on our Patreon page because you can join our Patreon for free. You don't have to be a paying member, and you get access to some things that we post. Monday, I went out and I said, hey, y'all, we're going to be doing a general topic this week. And if you have questions or comments or thoughts or ideas or whatever, please share it. And Phil took us up on that and said, hi, guys, loving the podcast as always. As you're asking, I wouldn't mind hearing what you all think about the recent Green Lantern Alan Scott miniseries and or Peach Momoka's Ultimate X-Men, both of which I've really enjoyed. Keep up the sterling work. Well, I will say I don't read a lot of DC Comics lately. I am very interested, and we'll talk a little bit here about some DC projects that are coming up. But I haven't been reading a lot of DC Comics lately, mainly because they don't seem like they want to be friends with me. And so I have decided that it's probably not good for me to give my money to somebody that doesn't want to be friendly with me, aka Major Spoilers. They will occasionally drop us a press release after it's gone out to every other place. But you notice we don't have any of the solicitations month to month anymore. I have to basically beg them. If there's a review copy, I have to go out and beg them and say, hey, can you please send us a review copy if you're not too busy? And maybe they will, maybe they won't. So the Green Lantern Alan Scott miniseries, Matthew, this is the one that is, everyone knows that Alan Scott is gay and the government, aka Hoover, is trying to blackmail him. Or is there another one that I'm missing?
But yeah, that is the basics of it. Essentially, it's taking the 2011 retcon, the 2011 development, if we take it in character terms, where Alan Scott in recent years has come out and said, I'm gay, I've always been gay. This is set in, I think, 39 or 40. And it does, in fact, take into it, Hoover is in play. We do get to see the origin of the Green Lantern. It is the classic origin, but it also has elements of that New 52 origin where his boyfriend in secret is on the train when he gets his powers. It really delves deep. And I know that the writer, Tim Sheridan, is himself LGBTQIA. So he's really delving deep into what type of forces you would be up against if you were gay in 1940. At a certain point, I know Alan spends some time in Arkham Asylum, and they are literally, torturing him, conversion therapy, trying to get him to give up his homosexuality. And it also brings in the Red Lantern, which, what Green Lantern really needed, you guys, was a Russian counterpart. And it all gets to be tied to the emotional spectrum, blah, 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 fish cakes. But I will say this, it was well written and it was gorgeous to look at.
Yeah, the art pages that we did have looked really, really pretty. And I did like those. I did like that look a lot. But that's the extent. I didn't take the time to read it. I am looking forward to collecting the, the current run of the Gotham by Gaslight, Kryptonian Age or whatever it's called. I really am looking forward to reading that in a month or two. I think issue 4 just came out. I may pick up the entire run where it's at now to read, but unless there's something that really jumps out and grabs me from DC or Marvel, I'm not really reading either one of those. Rodrigo, what about you? Are you reading anything from DC Comics?
No.
Same reason?
I mean, definitely anytime you need a hype man to go, yeah, well, you rant about DC, you know I'm here for you.
Yeah, thanks, Rodrigo. Here's $5.
Yeah.
That comes from our Patreon, Paul, who's a silver level member. That's right. Silver level membership, only $5 a month. And I can slip Rodrigo $5 to be my hype man.
Yeah. I haven't seen that. But they were talking about the Peach Momoko X-Men stuff. I've seen the art. I've seen the art for that, and that looks fantastic. I really like Peach Momoko's art style.
Yeah, me too.
And I'll add, from what I've seen, Armor is in it. Armor is an X-Men that comes from the X-Men anime, if I remember correctly. And it's a great example because Peach Momoko is Japanese. And I bet that that she looked at her options of X-Men and were like, ooh, a young Japanese X-Men. I'm going to put this in my story, right? So like the fact that the X-Men are so diverse and they have such like weird variety of people all over the place really gives creatives the ability to like kind of like pick and choose their toys and then write some very good stories around them. So I am interested in it. I've only seen the art for it, but I might actually dig that out.
Yeah, we've got the review copies that are really, really good. I've liked what I've seen.
One
of
your favorite characters is in it, Rodrigo.
Maggot?
No, Nico from the Runaways. Nico Minoru is part of the supporting cast. Now, if I have only read the first issue because I don't want to call it boycotting because boycotting implies that I'm trying to do it. I'm unnerved by a new Ultimate Marvel Universe, but the first issue all takes place in sort of kind of Japan. It's actually like a part of the world that is actually ruled by Sunfire and the Viper and Silver Samurai. And so, it's focusing on her, and Nico is in it, and oh gosh, who else is in there? I can't remember. I hope it's not Surge. I never did like Surge. But yeah, there's another old school X-Man person character who shows up in the later pages, but I can't remember. So
okay, yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it really is good looking. Like I say, I've sort of been cheap, and I
don't think there's anything wrong with the concept of what they're doing with the Ultimate relaunch, in that it's like the Ultimate Universe was there, but in this version, everyone's been made to forget that they're heroes and they have to rediscover the heroes that they are. And I dig that. I dig that.
Ultimate. The Reed Richards of Earth 1610, the original Ultimate Universe, found himself a new universe, but used his time travel powers to keep everyone from getting their powers. And so
the people are getting their powers, quote unquote, now, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The fact that the maker, the evil Reed Richards, is in it just makes my teeth itch. And I don't know, maybe I was burned in the summer of 94 when there were 19 new universes, but I want to see 6 or 7 issues of something under their belt before I go to the trouble of putting a new subfolder directory in my head for Earth 6160.
I think the Ultimate Comics are up to like issue 8 now. Let me look here. Marvel this week had some interesting
Molly
books
and Ultimate X-Men
out. Molly, I don't know. I mean,
I don't.
You might enjoy it more if you take some Molly.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. I'm always there to help you with your
parent of someone who has that name. No,
Ultimate X-Men just hits issue number 6 this week.
6. Okay.
So yeah,
and it's not that I'm even worried about it because I love Hickman in world building mode. And I think that like Hickman is sort of like the basis and the showrunner of this. I really loved his Avengers world.
He's the one that kind of is the overall architect of the new Ultimate Comics.
Yeah. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah, I
I
say
love
people
the
should
fact
check
that
it
they
out.
call it Earth 6160,
Yeah.
which takes into account not just the 616, but the fact that the original Ultimate Universe was Earth 1610.
Mm-hmm.
And people are just like, if you are dyslexic, do not attempt to learn these pieces of information.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just don't.
The Gail Simone X-Men series has been very good. Some people don't agree with us on that, but certainly our reviewers thought that was really good times. I was looking to see what is it that I am actively looking forward to each week. And so I'm looking at the stuff that's coming out this week. Why don't we do a little thing where you just say, not smash or pass, but read or pass. And here are some interesting ones from Archie Comics. Archie Comics has The Decision #1 out this week. It's a one shot where Archie is finally going to make up his mind, Betty or Veronica. Matthew?
Pass.
Rodrigo?
I've been burned before by this exact premise. Pass.
They've done it 3 times in the last 15 years.
Archie also has this week Cursed Library #1. It's a 3-issue miniseries that is part of the Chilling Adventures series, where we get to meet Jinx and I forget who else, Madam Satan and somebody else are all working together to keep the evil crusties at bay.
Is it Kardak? Kardak the Mystic?
I don't think in this one. I think this is an all-female cast.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see. Madam Satan, Jinx, and Danny Malloy, which is a new character, I believe, recently introduced. So, yeah. Read it or pass, Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, I like Jinx, but no.
Rodrigo?
I would read it. I'm not up to speed at all with like the Chilling
there's a lot of
Adventures
stuff.
universe, but I would absolutely pick up a book called Haunted Library.
It would be great if it was an anthology series.
Right, that would be great. And really for no other reason that when you translate it into Spanish, it like multiplies the number of characters in the name by like 5.
Oh,
like
really?
Such an extremely long. Yeah, it would be Biblioteca Embrujada.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like 8 syllables.
Archie
Danny
Comics
is at least based on an old school Archie character because Danny initially was Dilton's girlfriend back in when we were in high school.
Yeah. Archie Comics is giving Archie Andrews a new superhero power. He is going to be in a 4-issue Mr. Justice limited series that kicks off in, I want to say, November. Let's see. Here's the thing. A 4-issue limited series begins with a story by writer Tim Seeley and artist Mike Norton, told from the perspective of Archie's best friend Jughead and an emotional recollection of how the pair discovered Archie's hidden talents, designed his costume, and set off to save Riverdale and the world. Comes out in November of 2024. I want to check this out. I want to read this.
I want to check this out for 2 reasons. One, Mr. Justice is an existing Archie property, and I want to see if there's any tie to the golden age of Mr. Justice.
Yeah.
And if not, I just want to be there for the point where the fans are like, "What happened to Pure Heart the Powerful?"
I know, right? That's when it first came out, and I was like, "Wait, Archie is a superhero, and it's not Braveheart." And I had to go, "What's going on here?" You read a little bit more into it. It sounds fascinating. Boom Studios this week has Berserker, The Lost Book of B #1. I know a lot of people in the comic community may be wanting to poo-poo on Berserker just because of its commercialized aspect of it. But it is a big, heavy media property right now. There will be a movie based on the line. Keanu Reeves will be starring in it, obviously. It got a lot of play at San Diego Comic-Con. I am interested in the concept of Berserker, and The Lost Book of B plans to tell yet another hidden tale of the immortal and his life. So I will read this. Smash or pass?
I do not want to read this book, Berserker.
Okay. Dark Horse Comics has, what do they have out this week? They have a Nancy Boy #3 that is out. They have Star Wars The High Republic Adventures Phase 3 Volume 1 trade paperback. That is actually a fun series for young readers. I think people should go and check that out. Willem of Newbury #4 from Michael Avon Oeming. Fantastic tale of anthropomorphized animals going and doing the good fight. So throw in a little bit of Michael Avon Oeming, a little bit of Mike Mignola, and you kind of get the idea of that. It's a fun book. I will read on that.
What is it called again?
Willem of Newbury.
Willem Dafoe.
Dark Horse not Dark Horse. Boom Studios. We were talking about this a couple of weeks ago with the end of the current Mighty Morphin Power Rangers line. Boom Studios has announced that, yes, as I kind of said a few weeks ago, that Power Rangers is coming back in a new form. It is called Power Rangers Prime. I think that's what it's called.
Yes.
And it will kick off later this year. And hopefully this will kind of streamline stuff, basically reboot the universe and tell all new, all different stories of your favorite Rangers. Matthew, you down for that?
I mean, who are you asking? Of course I'm down for that. The fact that I'm looking at the covers of this and I'm like, ooh, look.
Yeah, there's some good stuff.
Princess Shimkin Red.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally sold on this. The Boom stuff has been really remarkable, really creative, and really weird takes. Like, I did not think I was going to like Power Rangers Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Power Rangers Academy has been a hoot.
Yeah, it's really good.
Course, yeah, the Darkest Hour thing. Darkest Hour is definitely a year-long crossover, and the fact that they managed to do that, a year-long crossover in the year 2024, that is crazy pants. That is impressive. They should be lauded for pulling it off. So I'm just like, yeah, I don't even know, man.
They've got an anthology series coming out later this year. I believe next year. Let me double check on this. It may be in November. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Usagi Yojimbo will have a team up adventure. Oh no, that comes out September 25th for people who are interested in that. So we've got a first look of that over at the website. And then, so if you're worried that you're not going to be able to get any more Power Ranger stuff, plenty more Power Rangers on the way. Anybody interested in Dune?
Sure.
I mean,
they have been doing a bunch of miniseries that look at the different houses of Dune. Out this week, Dune House Corino number 5 number 5 comes out. So somebody who's interested in Dune might want to go pick that up. We talked about Dark Horse. DC Comics has their Absolute Power series still going on. So there's Absolute Origins number 2 of 3, Absolute Task Force 7 number 5, Absolute. Let's see, what do they have? Yeah, those are the only ones.
Vodka with lemon.
Batman Dark Age number 5. They have Detective Comics 1088, Flash number 12, Gotham City Sirens, the final issue of that miniseries. For anybody that's interested in that. And then Zatanna brings down the house number 3. Great series. I have enjoyed reading that one. So I will be picking that up again this week and reading it. Cool. Dynamite Rodrigo, I am curious. You have not really reviewed any of the Gargoyles stuff from Dynamite Entertainment. And I'm kind of surprised by that. And because it is written by Greg Weisman, who is the series creator of Gargoyles, and this is an in-continuity continuation of his stories. So what's the deal, dude?
All right, you want me to tell you for real?
Yeah. Everyone's on the edge of their seat. This is one of those lean-in moments.
Okay, yeah, lean in. So here's the deal. Last year, or maybe a little bit more, Steven came to me with an opportunity and was like, hey, you want to interview Greg Weisman? I was like, yeah, absolutely, about his new Gargoyles book. So I wrote up some questions, which totally answered and was like gracious and cool about it. But one of the questions I asked was basically what needs to change about Gargoyles to exist in, the 2020s, right? And his answer was nothing. Everybody's here. Woo! Good times, which is not a bad answer, but is not the answer that I wanted to hear. And here's the deal. I love Gargoyles. I'll still sit down and watch a random episode of Gargoyles whenever I'm doing something else, or I think to, or I'm just like, which one's the one where like they wanted to sell this like super giant action figure of Goliath, in which he is like a super monster, and it's like, that's like the Eye of Odin episode where like Goliath wears it for a while, right? It's like, I'll do that. But it is 2024. I am in my 40s. And Gargoyles is a show about like cops helping like gargoyle cops be cops.
Mm.
And like I'm just like, is any is there going to be any like thought or addressing of that? And I don't feel like there is. Like the concern here is like, remember how like Brooklyn has a daughter? And it's like, oh yeah. It's like, and remember how like the English gargoyles are like at least one of them is time displaced, and that causes this and this to happen because of the Phoenix Gate, right? It's like that's what's important. It's like continuity and new stories sort of playing around with these characters. And I am, I guess, less interested in that, and also turned off a little bit by that because really thinking about propaganda, right? Like this idea that
Right.
like police departments are actively harmful to lots of different sectors of the population, while simultaneously they have this like ongoing lavish praise heaped on them constantly by TV shows
Mm-hmm.
and movies and everything else. That disconnect is something that sits very weird with me. I had to stop watching, Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't watch Law and Order shows anymore. Sometimes when my clients put them on, I will watch them, but I'm just like, now every time the characters like cool guys violate somebody's civil rights so that they can get their man,
Yeah.
it feels bad.
Yeah.
And I'm
no,
like,
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, and I'm like, Gargoyles, when you take a step back, you're like, it isn't about cops. But when you take two steps back, it's like Gargoyles is absolutely about cops, right? It's about like protecting and defending Manhattan. So it's weird with me, and it's something that I haven't been able to reconcile. Is the same like I know I'm weird about this. Like it's the same reason why I never picked up the like Miles Morales or Spider-Man 2 game, because in the first one, Spider-Man runs around setting up a like spy network for the local police.
Yeah, that's the whole plot.
Which is set up by Oscorp, which like an objectionably not objectionably, well, yes, objectionable. But objectively evil corporation, which the game then goes on to tell us that because Harry leaves Oscorp in the like as this happens, or like he kind of like tries to butt off his own part of the company. And I'm like, I played the whole game and I was waiting for that to be addressed, and it never gets addressed, which tells me that the writing team, the development team never thought about this. And it just leaves me cold. I'm just like weirdly sensitive about that stuff. And yeah, so for that reason, I haven't played any of the new Spider-Man games, and or Insomniac Spider-Man games. And I haven't read any of the new Gargoyle stuff.
Okay, that's a good, valid answer. Thank you for sharing that. Now everybody knows a little more. Rainbow Star. So yeah, no, I get where you're coming from on that. So you're probably not somebody who's excited about a Special Victims Unit coming to streaming finally, or anything like that. Yeah.
Only in the sense that I do have a client that loves those shows, and that means they're probably going to be on 100% of the time as opposed to 90% of the time, because some episode of Law and Order is airing on cable at all times.
Oh yeah.
Yes, it's the
in
law.
Some channel. Yeah.
That's how Law and Order works.
Yeah.
I have not read the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reboot. I am interested in checking that out. The second, what is this? Yeah, they just did a second printing of the first issue, is out this week, so you can pick that up.
Is it a full boot launch, or is it something?
I think so.
Yeah, it is. It totally is. Yeah.
Okay.
What is going on? I don't really read Philadelphia. I know Ingrid was reviewing it for a while. But Philadelphia is doing something weird where they're crossing over, like Spawn shows up for an issue and Savage Dragon shows up for an issue. So I don't know what's going on. In fact, I don't really know what's going on in the greater Image Comics scheme, because Local Man has comics crossing over with old Image Comics, and just characters popping out of nowhere, almost like you would see from a DC or a Marvel. But unlike DC and Marvel, each of these titles is independently owned by their creators, which to me just seems like a logistical nightmare for their lawyers to try to make sure that the rights issues are all taken care of very, very carefully.
Here's the important thing. 1993, Image Comics debuted with Youngblood. 93, 94, we're looking at basically 30th anniversary stuff. And the thing that I love about both Blood Squad 7 and Local Man is the Image comics that they're celebrating don't exist. But Blood Squad 7 is specifically, implicitly about Youngblood, but Image doesn't own Youngblood, and Rob Liefeld doesn't own Youngblood anymore. And so they cannot use Youngblood, but they have a few characters who are associated with Youngblood, who were part of the whole Youngblood. God, I hate to use the term mythos in this context, but yeah, the oeuvre of Youngblood. And they've taken those characters who remain, and they've basically said 30 years later, the team is back, but they can't say Youngblood. So it's Blood Squad 7. Mm-hmm. The implication is that the things that we saw happen did happen in some form or another. So it really is kind of a multiverse story.
Well, no, I'm talking about like Philadelphia, which is vampires or zombies. Yeah. I forget which one. And then suddenly Spawn shows up, or then suddenly Savage Dragon shows up. And again, it's great when you have that happen in Invincible and everyone's like, yeah, this is all really cool. It becomes very much different when you have to collect that stuff into trade and you have to start shelling out royalties. And suddenly some of this stuff becomes it could become very political, especially if there's a break with the company. We've talked before about Angela, the character, and how that was co-created by Neil Gaiman. And he went ahead and just sold his portion off to Marvel. And Marvel had a whole thing with Angela, and Image was kind of like, what do we do now? And so every time I see, and I applaud Image for doing this, and I applaud the creators for willing to have their creation show up in books that they don't own. But part of, and I really appreciate that, but part of me still sits there and goes, man, I sure hope you have a really, really, really good relationship with those creators. And hopefully it never goes bad, because that could lead to some very bad things happening.
Savage Dragon is a pretty good example of a creator who's really open to that sort of thing. I mean, you can, and it's kind of obvious, and I don't mean this to sound as terrible, you could probably talk Eric Larson into having the dragon in pretty much everything. And Eric is one of those people. He's not necessarily like an H.P. Lovecraft level of this is all open source craziness, but he definitely likes to support other independent creators. Savage Dragon has been a part of all sorts of craziness in the past 30 years. Sure. Keep in mind, there's a big storyline that canonically, officially, according to Steve Gerber, the creator of Howard the Duck, removed Howard the Duck from the Marvel Universe and replaced him with a clone. And when Chip Zdarsky was writing Howard the Duck, people kept saying, why does he keep saying that Howard is a clone? And the reason is Zdarsky is like, well, Howard's creator says that this is a clone, and so I'm treating him as a clone. And first of all, props to Zdarsky, but second of all, it's something that is probably a nightmare to try and work out, but it's also one of those, comic history moments where you have to kind of go back and go, oh.
Did they take Howard somewhere else?
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Gerber passed away not long after that, but Gerber basically had Howard escape into the pages of Savage Dragon.
Wow.
In an unofficial crossover, dye his hair green, or his feathers green, I guess I should say, and dub himself Leonard the Duck. And I don't think Leonard made more than just that one appearance. But basically, it was Gerber's assessment that at that point in time, this is the real Howard. Anything else is the clone. And of course, if you say this to Marvel,
yes,
Marvel
lawyers would like to have a word. Yeah.
You know what? They let Zdarsky do it.
It's fine if they want to keep saying it's clone, but I'm talking about literal rights issues, as opposed to letting you to borrow a character for a moment or making up something that fits your narrative of how the legal system works is quite a bit different.
Exactly. But that's kind of the thing. It was one of those moments where only, it's an example of the creator having their own personal continuity and other creators saying, sure, let's roll with that. But I feel like the Philadelphia thing specifically is a good example of what Image does well. Because if you look at the Savage Dragon who appeared in Invincible and the Savage Dragon who appears in the early issues of Youngblood and the Savage Dragon who ends up crossing over with the Marvel Universe, can't be the same guy. There's literally no way for this to be the same guy. So this has got to be like, oh yeah, there's a multiverse of Savage Dragons. It's fine. Everything's fine. All stories are true to some degree. And I feel like, to his credit, Eric is really good at just going, oh yeah, that's fine. Sure. Yeah, they did something.
Well,
It's a thing
ladies
we
and
did.
gentlemen, if you want to see Spawn, Savage Dragon, and Blackula all come together, then you need to go pick up this week's Philadelphia number 35 from
And who
Image
doesn't?
Comics. This is Rodney Barnes, Jason Sean Alexander, Clayton Crane, and German Aramuspe. Obviously mispronouncing that, but there you go on that. There was something else I was going to transition over to really quick, but it has slipped my mind. Rodrigo, what's the thing you're watching these days besides what your clients are forcing you to watch?
Oh God, something I'm watching because I want to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
Does that
guess
exist?
probably not. I've been playing a game called Zenless Zone Zero.
Mm-hmm.
It is a free-to-play game, but it's a gacha game. So
and in the form that they have some kind of micro payment, and every time you do that, they go, gotcha.
Yeah. So pretty much. So they these games. This is a Hoyo game. So they're the ones that did Genshin Impact. They're the ones that do Honkai Star Rail. So the main part of the game, which is all of these like cool characters, most of which are cute ladies, is the way you get them is by putting in a credit and pulling a machine and seeing if you get them. Right. So you are supposed to keep trying and trying.
Gachapon theory.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. I mean, 100%. They don't hide it. They're very open about it. They've posted their like the system for it. So there are like various like sort of like pity mechanics that can get you something more often than it normally would by the price of it. I'm having a good time with it. I actually made a video about it. And it's been surprisingly good. I've been playing the story mode, and it involves like I did not expect like property rights and like competing infrastructure companies to factor into this game's like main story, but it does. It's actually kind of weirdly the driving force behind it, because the premise is these like black domes appeared all over the place and they're full of monsters. And so the city in which you live is trying to do all kinds of things. Retrieve stuff that was lost because now it's in a dome full of monsters. They are trying to like maybe try to get transportation through it. So there's all of these things, and they largely involve these companies that are competing and sort of like cheating each other at like trying to get these like government contracts. And like in the middle of it is your character, who's basically a the guy in the Matrix that's not in the Matrix, that's like on the chair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And tells you what's up,
or
like
Tank or whatever his name is.
Yeah,
Tank.
that's your character.
Oh, okay.
Oh, got it. So
and
you're not in the Matrix. You're just near.
Your character isn't in the Matrix, but that is why you have control of these other characters. That you get 3 characters in a mission, and you can switch. You only play one, but you can switch between them, which allows you to like potentially combo their abilities or whatever. There's a lot of like fighting game DNA in this too, which makes it very interesting. I'm having a lot of fun with it, but as always, anytime I talk about Zenless Zone Zero, I feel responsible to begin and end anything I say about it with like, it's a gambling game. It's a game which is like predatory, to try to get you to spend as much money on it as possible. So whales beware, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think one of my sons is definitely a whale that we have to be aware of, because that kid sinks way too much money into Roadblocks and Minecraft and Fortnite and all of that stuff.
Everybody needs a hobby.
Yeah, but I just wish it wasn't so predatory and expensive. Right?
Well.
It's different. I mean, certainly going out and buying model kits that can be, and building those Gundams, right? Yeah, that can be expensive very quickly. But some of these things, especially when I use the word prey very loosely, but when they prey on kids, that's when it becomes super, super hard. So I'm going to make sure that he stays away from this game, Rodrigo.
Good call.
So one of the comics that I am interested in coming out of this Absolute Power is the new Absolute line of comics. It is a separate universe, very much like the Ultimate Comics is a separate universe. Regular Batman and regular Detective will run alongside the Absolute books. But one of the things this week they debuted, or last week I should say, they debuted all of the variant covers. And man, are people upset about the Batman logo for Absolute Batman.
Right.
And I can understand why people are upset. I need to know a little bit more about the character. Obviously, it's Bruce Wayne without the money, without the butler, without the resources. And so I'm interested to read that from that point, but maybe that will give us an idea of where that logo comes from. And as I look at the logo, and a lot of people are like, I hate the chonky bat. And my question is it a chonky bat or is it a mouth of teeth?
So
and the reason why I say that is, when Batman is lunging at you with his cape, that's a bat. And his head and the ears are the ears of the bat. And this giant symbol that looks like a big open mouth with a bunch of jangly teeth in it coming at you. That seems pretty scary.
Yeah, I could see that. The only issue with that, I would say, is that the points point up.
Well, no, look at the negative space, right? So the black space is the open mouth. The gray stuff around the edge are the teeth.
That's what I'm saying. If you look at the negative space, that means it's a mouthful of flat teeth.
Yeah.
Right? Because the triangles are like the spaces between the teeth, as opposed to if they were if it was gray poking into the black, then it would look like fangs. But as that is, it mostly just looks like a big mouth of flat.
Big old incisors coming at you. With that weird middle tooth. The Tom Cruise tooth.
Tom Cruise tooth. See, there's only one problem with that for me. And on the one hand, I do like your description. But if you say to me it's a Batman story and we're talking about teeth, that just implies the Joker, who we've been taught for years is the anti-Batman. And I'm just, that's like, oh, yeah, we're going to have Spider-Man, see? But instead of a spider, he's going to have this big octopus on his chest. It's going to be an octopus chest. I don't know. But yeah, that's an interesting visual. I may not be the target audience. I am not excited by any of the art on any of the Absolute books. It may be avant-garde. It may be for the young people.
Here's the thing that I like. Batman is owned by DC, right? So DC gets to decide what they want to do with their character. And if Scott Snyder comes up and says, I want to do chonky Batman and just make it the chonkiest chonk that ever chonked, DC gets to say, yeah, go ahead and do that. And let's see what happens. And you get to go and you get to play with that Batman. Likewise, if someone says, well, I've got this movie about the Joker, but it's not quite the Joker. It's a different take on the Joker. And DC is like, yeah, this is a very interesting take. Why don't you go ahead and make a movie and see how that does? And it's not the Cesar Romero Batman. It's not the Heath Ledger Batman. It's something totally different. And I think that that's one of the cool things about a mega company like DC or Marvel or others that are willing to go to a Japanese creator and say, you want to make the X-Men allegories for Japanese mythology? And you're going to do it in a Japanese style? Yeah, go for that. Take our property, take the thing that makes us millions upon millions of dollars and go try something different with it. Or go out and you want to make Spider-Man Black from another universe? By all means, do it. Let's see what happens with this. and it doesn't lock things into being constantly stale.
Yeah.
But if you want your tried and true Batman, they're still going to publish Batman. If you want Batman with his wiener hanging out, they've got Black Label Comics. If you want something that has this person who is Batman but not Batman, his wealth and all of that stuff of the Bruce Wayne, they got the Absolute stuff. And I really do applaud a company that's willing to take a risk, which is weird because Marvel, Disney, Warner Brothers, DC are not companies that are risk takers.
So go ahead.
I feel like on the one hand, I definitely understand what you're saying, but I also feel like the minute that there is blowback, like that Batman with his wanger out, the corporate suits come in and shut it down. You cannot get the Batman with his wanger out story. The collection has taken it out. The digital copies have taken it out unless you bought it in that original press run, like 60,000 people did.
That is also...
They will come in. And if enough people say, this chonky bat, we hate it, we hate you and your chonky bat, take it away, they will.
Well, yes, but define enough people, because is it literally the majority who says we don't want this? Or is it a vocal minority that is making it appear like there's a large number of people doing this? So when you're talking about Batman with his wang out, or you're talking about a gay character at Archie Comics or whatever, it's the vocal minority of pearl clutchers that are creating this outcry. And so
when the company responds and shuts it down, they let it go, right? They're like, yeah, here's the first book. It's got Batman with his wang out, or it's got Chonky Batman, or it's got the Joker, who is not the Dick Sprang Joker. And let's see what happens. And yeah, if there's blowback, well, yeah, of subsequent printings, yeah, we're going to edit it out. But if you have that original version, it's still out there. Rodrigo, what were you going to say?
I actually think that the companies aren't going far enough with it.
I would also agree with you there too.
If you look at something like Ultimate Spider-Man, the current Ultimate Spider-Man, right? They're like, oh yeah, we want to write this story where Spider-Man's like a dad and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, so let's launch a new Ultimate universe. And it's like, no, just write that story. So maybe like the Absolute Batman, whatever it does, I'm glad that it's separate from the rest of the DC universe, and just let it do its thing. My concern is if it gets popular, then they'll launch the whole Absolute line, and that's not what I want. What I want is more stories that are separate and are sort of like takes on the characters, right? Keep some stuff, you change some stuff. That's how the characters have grown, except that process is very, very slowed down by continuity or outright destroyed, right? And it gives us endless stories that do absolutely nothing except reset the character to where they were, were before.
And fans who have been here with us long enough, go get your F continuity t-shirts out and wear them proudly today. I think it's odd that Diane Nelson, who's no longer with the company, was right when she's like, hey, just tell stories that people are interested in. Maybe some of them will work, some of them won't, but we don't have to be tied down to continuity if we don't want to. And there was a vocal minority of fans that were like, no, we must always know what's in continuity, when we know that it is impossible with so many people playing with the toys to have any kind of cohesive, correct continuity without introducing errors that make people question, well, in issue 32, we saw Green Lantern do this, and willpower is not supposed to allow that. But over here in issue 146, he's not doing that at all. What gives? And then at which point we need the Homer Simpsons to say, shut up, nerd.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, if you love The Nail or Another The Nail, that continuity is not infringing on the real DC universe, the quote unquote real DC universe, right? But stuff that is in continuity is going to sort of pull and push back. And like, a great example of these are Green Lanterns. Like, everybody has a Green Lantern that was the Green Lantern when they started reading the book. And much like the Doctor, that's like your Green Lantern, and every successive writer on Green Lantern probably hates one of those. And so it's like they just take turns like launching somebody's favorite Green Lantern out of a cannon. And it's like, why? You wouldn't even have to worry. It's like, oh, what's Boz up to nowadays? It's like, well, you don't even have to worry about it. If you're just writing an Alan Scott story, like you don't have to worry about that guy right now.
Yeah.
Just write your Alan Scott story.
Yeah. Yeah. It's too bad. I mean, the unfortunately the audience is not infinite, right? This is the problem that I think large corporations are starting to figure out, especially in the streaming worlds, is there's not an infinite audience that you can continually build upon and build upon and build upon. Their audience is a finite pie. And at some point it becomes a zero-sum game where all you're doing is either taking away from somebody else's streaming service or they're taking away from you, but you can't continue to grow the size of the pie. And comic books are the same way. If we had an infinite multiverse of comic readers out there, then we could have a series that has Alan Scott and another series that has Hal Jordan and another series that's the buddy cop, Guy Gardner and Jon Stewart. That would actually be a pretty funny movie.
That would be pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. And it has to be done as a buddy cop. You know, you could have all of those series all coexist and do their own thing. But because we don't have that, we do have to figure out what is our audience, and is our audience right now more of a Guy Gardner audience? Is it more of an Alan Scott audience? Is it more of a Hal Jordan audience? And who can tell an interesting story about that character? So that's one of the problems that I see when we look at, you know, audience fragmentation with characters. But the fact that companies are willing to say, yeah, just try it and let's see if it works. It really needs to be applauded more than what quote unquote fans are allowing.
Yeah.
Well, and there is also an important question, because Todd Solondz this week was talking about how Joker 2 Electric Boogaloo, whatever it's going to be, is going to have a Harley Quinn. And he's like, we made sure to strip away all of the goofiness and the funny accent and all of the things that you expect from a Harley Quinn. And at that point, my first question was, well, why are you calling her Harley Quinn?
Why can't they?
Why can't they? Why do you need to? Hang on. I'm in the middle of a sentence, Stephen. If the Harley Quinn is a thing, if whatever Harley Quinn is important enough that it has to be called Harley Quinn, why do we also have to be embarrassed about that source material and take it out? You know, we do have that question where nothing new gets done anymore. Everything is always a take on something we've seen. As much as I enjoy, you know, the Spider-Verse films, for example, they're not new. They're takes on something we've already seen. So if you're going to do that, why isn't he allowed to come up with someone who isn't Harley Quinn at all? Why does it need to be locked to existing IP?
Well, and that goes back to what I said earlier, because that Joker is not the Dick Sprang Joker. It's not the Cesar Romero Joker. And so people are like, well, if he's not the Joker, if he's not the Dick Sprang or the Cesar Romero Joker, why are you calling it the Joker? And yet, because they let the creators go and do something new with these characters, they created something really different and unique. And we may, before we rush to judgment, we might want to watch the film first to see, well, what did they keep about Harley Quinn that makes her this companion? Is it because, I mean, my understanding
and it could
from
be
what
unsuccessful, right?
It could be very unsuccessful. Yeah, it could be, but it could also be something that is right in line. But at least they're giving them a chance to do it and see what is their take on Harley Quinn. I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and this is again something stupid on the internet about the new Batman Caped Crusader, with how they've changed Harley Quinn in that series. And again, doesn't have the sassy mouth, doesn't chew the bubble gum, isn't, you know, Mr. J, isn't doing any of that stuff. So why does she have to be Harley Quinn? Because that take on Harley Quinn is fascinating and it's interesting and it's in the spirit of what that Harley Quinn is. So
yeah. Harley Quinn is a great example of, and Matthew touched on it before, of like sort of people being embarrassed about the source material. Because, you know, you look at something like the upcoming Lady Gaga Harley Quinn, and it's like, oh, we've taken out all this goofy stuff. And you have people upset about that. They're like, but it's like, well, Harley Quinn is a classic, with her blue and red pigtails and booty shorts. And it's like, well, that's not the classic Harley Quinn. That Harley Quinn was introduced in the Gotham games because they were embarrassed to have a little clown-dressed clown girl, right?
Yeah.
They're like, we need to make this girl look like a little bit of a
hot topic.
Like a little bit of a hot topic.
Yeah. So I get where you're coming from, Matthew. I do. But I also think that, if we're willing to at least try something, right? I don't know what is a food that is something that you've never tried that you might think is disgusting. Brussels sprouts. Let's say that you have never eaten.
Food is not a good thing for me.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, let's just say use a Brussels sprout, for example.
I do love me some fried Brussels sprouts.
So someone, you've never eaten a Brussels sprout, it looks gross, and you're sitting there going, I don't like this because it's not broccoli and it's not a chocolate covered caramel ball, whatever. But at some point, somebody's just going to say, listen, I know this doesn't look appealing. I know you think you're not going to like it, but how about you try it? How about you try just something that's a little bit different from your regular routine? And you just try that Brussels sprout. And maybe you find out, like you said, Matthew, you love Brussels sprouts. Hooray! You've discovered something new in your life, and hopefully that expands your horizon and makes you excited about what else is out there that I haven't experienced before. But there's in that
analogy, you're not telling me here's a Brussels sprout. Totally, it's chocolate, and I feel like that.
Yeah, here's another analogy
of food. Yeah, let's try it.
Imagine that you love pizza,
and somebody wants to put pineapple on it,
and then somebody is like, "Look at this delicious pizza I've made. The crust is actually some sort of cylinder bowl." And it is just filled to the brim with cheese with a light dusting of pepperonis on top. Possibly some structural sausage as a disc at the bottom. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You might look at that and say, gross, that's not pizza. That's some sort of cheese stew. But in fact, it may be a new, interesting take on pizza. And if you have some, you might enjoy it.
Yeah.
Structural sausage is my drag name.
So when we look at whether pineapple is okay on pizza or whether we're talking about some kind of deep dish monstrosity that Rodrigo is describing, I think just trying it. And it's okay to just take a bite of Rodrigo's pizza and go, you know what? I see what they're trying to do, but it's not for me. Give me that slice of cheese or regular sausage pizza.
I think it's like, the thing is like, I think that's a little unfair to Matthew because Matthew does try a lot of.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about Matthew as a metaphor for the greater fan community.
No. Matthew is a Sagittarius. Metaphors are born in May.
Go on, Rodrigo.
What I'm saying is, Matthew. Like Matthew's a big Super Sentai fan, and that's all they do. Is like every new season is like they're keeping some stuff and they're throwing out most of it, right?
Right.
So it's not like, when Matthew looks at this, he knows that they're doing a remix of Harley Quinn and they're taking a risk or whatever, but like the initial bleeps don't look good to him. Right. And that's fair. That was my take on the Joker movie the first time around.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was looking at that and I was like, that looks bad. And then I watched it and I was like, this movie was amazing because everybody in the culture war can find something about it and say, this movie was about my point being right. And it pretty much will go to bat for you. So I don't know any other piece of cinema that can do that.
Yeah.
So
that's what I'm saying.
My main curiosity about the new Joker. See if they can do it again.
Yeah. I'm interested in seeing it too. I enjoyed the first Joker. I liked what it was doing. It was funny that you crammed a remake of Taxi Driver into a quote unquote comic book movie, but I applaud the effort. So yeah, I'm willing to try something out. So when somebody sends me something and says, "Oh, what do you think of this new take on Batman?" I'm like, let me give it a shot. Let me see if it works or not. I'll definitely read it if it interests me. If it's something that hooks me, I'll definitely check it out. But I'm not going to go, ooh, that logo looks horrible. I'm never going to buy this book, and no one else should either, because if they do, that means they're horrible people. But instead, I might say, wait a minute, is that a chonky bat or is that a mouth? I kind of want to read the issue where they reveal how Batman's costume is being made in this thing, just so I can see chonky bat or mouth.
Chonky bat.
Like, if you look at like the Affleck Batman logo,
it's also a chonky Batman.
Yeah. We've been flirting with completely rectangular Batman logo for a while, honestly.
Oh yeah, I think didn't Frank Miller do a really? I was going to say, wasn't a Frank Miller Batman a logo that's pretty fat too?
Yeah, the Dark Knight logo, the Earth 31 Batman, was very, very thick, very much like the one in the Absolute. And that's actually one of the things that I think is probably going to be the selling point for it.
Yeah, I think it's a dog whistle for Miller fans.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but I feel it's also it's what you call your shibboleth, where you can be like, okay, well, what are we going for here? We have this visual thing that evokes the Dark Knight Returns. So, hey, I really love the Dark Knight Returns. Maybe I'll check that out. Some people on a certain level are going to be like, oh, this looks interesting. And then some people are going to be like, oh, man, that looks like the Dark Knight Returns, and run. Mm-hmm. Run fast, run far. And those people are also going to be fine.
Sure.
I hope so. Unfortunately, people like to latch their teeth into their hatred of something and make that their personality. And then when it turns out that, oh no, this was actually really good, they really don't know what to do next. Here's one thing that I'll say as we wrap up. A couple of weeks ago, we made some comments about something industry related, and some people fired back and said, you guys don't know what the heck you're talking about. But then I had a professional reach out to me the other day and was like, no, you guys are totally spot on. And you guys have a better understanding of the industry than what all these other people who are culture raging about. And they appreciate that we have that approach. And so I like that, somebody from the industry reaches out and says, no, I just wanted to let you know that you guys were spot on that topic. So thank you for that. Nice. And thank you to everybody who was listening to the show. Hopefully you found something interesting in this conversation. Perhaps you have some feedback yourself. Perhaps you have a thought or an idea that you want to add on. Perhaps you just want to jump in and say, no, I hate the new Harley Quinn. Boo. And then somebody will respond, I said boo earns. And everybody will have a good laugh, and we will all share cat gifts. You can do that all over on our Discord server, which you can join absolutely free. So much is going on. I can't even keep up. Rodrigo's in there talking about some metaphor, and he's not talking about a metaphor. He's talking about a game that's a metaphor for something else. I don't know what's going on over in the video games category. People are talking about their favorite recipes and conspiracy theories and all sorts of stuff. It all goes on the Major Spoilers Discord server. You can check that out absolutely free. But if you want to see the show go far into the future, and I know we've been saying that for 18 years now, we're quickly closing in on 20 years, which, there aren't even comic book companies that have been around 20 years.
Not anymore.
No, some of them gone out of business, but there are some of them that are just like, hooray, we just celebrated 15 years. I'm like, oh, that's so cute. And it's like, if you want to see us hit that 20th anniversary milestone, and you want to get bonus content like the Major Spoilers podcast pre-show, like the GM Roundtable, I'm going to try to do something different. I think I'm going to do something different in September that will go out to all the podcast feeds. So bear with me as I do this test. Hopefully you will enjoy it and find some value in it. And hopefully if you haven't been listening to any of our other shows, you will find some value in what I'm about to do. But if you do enjoy that stuff and do want to see it continue, by all means, head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/Major Spoilers, $5 a month. Oh, that's one thing that's going to happen in this very first one. I'm going to address that whole Patreon Apple thing. So keep your ears and eyes open for that. But my suggestion is go via website to patreon.com/Major Spoilers. Sign up for $5 a month. $5 per month is all it takes to keep us going into the future. So until next time on the show, when we are going to talk about, oh my goodness, are we really going to read 17 issues of the Kang Dynasty?
Probably.
I guess we are. Why? Because we know that you love comics and we do too, and we will Kang to you soon.
If I had the X-ray vision of a Superman, I could save a few bucks and stand around and read through the covers of the comics on the stand. But although every other page would be backwards, I suppose I could still read the evens and the odds. Well, I don't know. Guess I haven't thought this all the way through. Plus, as soon as the comic book store guy knew, he kicked my butt out on the corner. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Think about a better way. If I was hulking green or gray, I could just bust through that brick wall, take their comic books away. But then the little meat would deal with all the tanks and bombs and guns. Have you ever tried to read a series with all that going on? Guess I need to rethink this plan. How would I back and board my comics with such huge hands? Guess I already told ya. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. If I'm Stark Raven, rich like a man of iron, I might not be surprised to find that I might actually have the heart cold to follow an entire storyline. But would I really even need to read up on all those escapades? I mean, who needs such distractions when your sister's such a babe? But the downside is such a beast. Being shot up in a fun bee in the Middle East with a gang sign throwing soldier. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. Whoa, 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 whoa. What a major spoiler.
This podcast is copyright 2024 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.